So Connor, as you're probably aware, nobody's been able to buy a PS5 this holiday season. Uh, so despite their launch in early November, as of recording this podcast, they're still sold out on every site that I visited. And a large reason for this is Scalpers, right? So due to current quarantine conditions, the launch was done completely online. And with technology on their side, Scalpers were able to use bots to buy up literally all of the PS5s. I guess not literally all the PS5s, most of the PS5s, and then resell them for 2 to 3 times the price. So today we're going to discuss whether or not this is morally reprehensible or just smart capitalism in a free market. Could scalpers face civil or criminal penalties? And most importantly for this podcast, is there even a financial crime here? My name is Jules.
My name is Connor.
This is Cash Only. This is our first podcast back, 2021. Welcome. Whether or not it'll be our first podcast up in 2021 is yet to be determined.
Yeah, there's just so much going on right now. It feels like every time we talk about a new topic, it gets replaced by something that might be more concurrent with the constant changing environment that we're living in 2021.
That's one of the things I love about being in like financial crimes, though, is that it's never a dull day, especially with how big crypto's becoming. But that's on for another another.
That's
podcast.
Another pod. We'll have plenty of crypto pods to satisfy Jules. Yeah, but thanks for coming back, everybody. Welcome back. As you notice, I don't get the fancy background. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't have the fancy background like Jules does right now.
That's mostly because
for recording.
That is because you have your old computer and I am using my Mac. Cheers.
Cheers. Hey, man. Good to be back. This is lots of fun. Excited to talk about these things. So scalpers, right. Man. I mean, when I think of scalping, though, I think of a guy in a trench coat outside of a stadium.
Right.
You know, sold out shows, sold out games, selling tickets. But what we're talking about here is retail scalping.
It'd be pretty hard to fit a PS5 inside of your trench coat, right?
You can get 1 or 2 in there. I don't know. I don't know if the stadium's the best place to sell them, but.
So Connor, how much do you think these scalpers are actually making?
So from what I've seen, I saw something, and I don't know exactly what the timeline was, but it was like, it was either an individual or an organization was making something. It was $20,000 or $40,000, but an insane amount because they're selling them at a humongous markup, right? Like you said, 2 to 3 times, right?
Yeah. So one seller, I found a story. One seller was actually, he made $40,000 in less than a week.
That's insane. In 1 week,
less than
$40,000.
Yeah. So this guy, he's 22, managed to earn himself $40,000 in a single week after collecting 221 PS5 consoles to sell. And he had supposedly gathered these through a combination of bots and genuine online sales, which who the fuck knows what that means? I
mean, he wasn't a busy little bee just going to Best Buy and Radio Shack. If there's still Radio Shacks, I don't know. But when we say his bots, he bought them by bots and then he bought them by genuine online sales. Like the percentage of what he bought genuinely compared to what the bots bought is minuscule, right? The bots were online, crawling the web, trying to identify these things, and he was probably able to get. I mean, he can't do it faster than you or I can do it with our fingers, typing.
Precisely. Right. I don't know about you or any of our listeners, but I personally was trying to buy a PS5 since launch. Yeah. And every time I think Walmart was like the best and easiest way to get it because they had like queues. Mm-hmm. And every time I would get in the queue and I would get to the point where I'd have the PS5 in my checkout and I still wouldn't be able to check out because by the time I like had clicked to finalize paying, it had already sold out.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. And it's usually because of the bots, right? This guy actually spent, the article I read, it said that his entire operation cost over nearly $100,000. So
I mean, he's making it back. In 1 week, he's making $40K.
Yeah, but this guy's 22. Where is he getting $100,000 from that he can just drop on PS5s? Like, do you take out a loan? Is it nefarious means?
Well, that's a very good point because as we'll talk about, I mean, that's the question that we're asking. It's a question you just asked. Is this illegal? Because you can't go to a bank and ask for a business loan and say, well, I'm going to sell pot on the corners. Like, I'm going to make money, but they'll be like, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But is this illegal? We're obviously at a blurred line here. So is this a business plan that he could go get a business loan for? I mean, well, I guess those are the questions we're going to talk about today. But if we can stop for a second, because we keep referring to bots, should we back up and explain what a bot is and how it buys PS5s?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. People create these essentially computer programs that monitor these websites that are selling the PS5s. So your Walmarts, your Targets, and as soon as the PS5s go for sale, the bots pretty much automatically go in and do the entire purchasing process much faster than a human possibly can. Yeah, exactly. Right. By the time I input my name, the bot has already bought like 20.
Right. It crawls the web, for available PlayStations, and it can identify them, put them in the cart, and check out. And at the speed of light, essentially. It's obviously it's a bot. It's not a human. But they're identifying them and they're checking out. Just like you said, by the time you got to checkout, it was able to identify what you were trying to buy, put it in its cart, check it out, and have it shipped to its address in the time it took you to put in your credit card information, right?
Yep. And a lot of times they're hidden behind VPNs, behind different names. So even when websites try to place these restrictions on people, you can only purchase one PS5 per IP. They find ways around
IP, it. Exactly.
And
there are programs in place which kind of bounces back to the argument of the legality of it, because these retailers, Target, Walmart, GameStop, have services, programs in place that are trying to identify bots and stop them. They want regular people to buy their consoles. They don't want bots to buy them and have a bunch of consoles go to one person and hoard them, because that messes up their whole their marketing strategy, their whole business plans in releasing these, because their plan is they're going to sell them to humans. They're going to sell about one per household. You don't really need more than one or two, maybe. And then each one of those households or individuals who go ahead.
I would argue that, realistically, I don't think that, PlayStation or any of these resellers really care, because their bottom line really isn't affected. They still get their money for the PlayStation 5s.
Right.
They can say they're trying to all they want, and it's really just to, make the consumer feel better. I think Walmart said they were able to stop somewhere around 40,000 bots from purchasing through their website. I honestly don't think that they really care as much as they claim they do.
I would say the retailers, Walmart and Target and GameStop or whomever, those are the three I keep repeating. They probably don't care. They're getting their bottom lines met. But I think Sony might care, because Sony is the manufacturer of PlayStation, if you don't know. But they might care because this is messing up with their long-term sales, their residual sales over time, where, for example, they expect me to buy a PlayStation 5. I didn't, but they would expect me to buy one. And then I'd be excited about my PlayStation 5. It's got new graphics. It's got a more efficient processor. So I'd buy a game or two. And that's kind of their model, is I'll buy a game with it. And then over time, I'm going to have this PlayStation 5 until it becomes obsolete, which is a topic for a whole nother podcast, how they become obsolete intentionally. But over the course of that period of time, I'm going to buy games. And there's an industry term that was new to me. It was the tie ratio. And the tie ratio is as they produce these, as they put these out, they kind of expect one console to be sold with one games. And the consoles are sold at a loss, and the games are sold highly marked up. So when these bots come in and people are hoarding them, right now they're at a tie ratio of about 3-1. So 3 consoles are being sold for every one game. And those consoles are being sold at a loss. So that's kind of messing with Sony's bottom line to a degree, because they're being hoarded. Now, in that same line, Sony is not the retailer, they're the producer. So they're also getting their bottom line met in that they're being sold, and they can control the supply. They can produce more if they find that they're being hoarded, because they're being bought, and then they're being purchased by bots. But then they can also produce more to be purchased by real consumers.
And that brings up a great point, right? So I guess, first of all, we should tackle the question, is scalping illegal? And the answer is no, right? I mean, there are a few states that regulate things such as ticket scalping, but when it comes
ticket
to
scalping is generally illegal. But retail scalping, which is what we're talking about, we're like specifically tickets have been identified. So when you see the man in front of the stadium, you know, hollering about tickets, that is illegal. But what we're talking about specifically is not.
Retail scalping, right? Which normally you would see in shoes. I think that's the biggest like retail scalping is shoes, right?
Except 2020, then it became hand sanitizer and toilet paper.
Exactly. And realistically, so that brings up a great point, right? Because eventually scalping hand sanitizer and toilet paper became illegal because it went against
price gouging. It was a emergency.
You're right. During states of emergency, you can't price gouge. And what happened then was, you know, I think there was one guy who got stuck with over 17,000 bottles of like hand sanitizer that he couldn't sell because Amazon put limits on the price that you can sell certain items, such as hand sanitizer.
And then another thing to note, though, there's a difference between scalping and gouging. Whereas gouging is in a state of emergency raising your prices, and that is illegal to raise your prices due to a cause, generally an emergency. However, scalping, you can just start with an exuberant price. If you just purchase something and sell it retail at a huge markup, that's not necessarily gouging. That's just starting at a unreasonable price. And if people will buy into it because of a shortage of demand, that's scalping, which is not illegal like gouging is, right?
It's capitalism, right?
Right. I mean, that's the whole retail market, is buying wholesale at a lower price and then selling to individuals at the higher price, right?
So with that said, do you think that the whole PS5 scalping is morally reprehensible, or is it just smart capitalism?
I mean, that really, I mean, that's what we've been thinking about for the whole, you know, last few days is this, is it ethical? Is it moral? And is it the right thing to do? I don't think ethically, talking specifically about ethics, it's not unethical. It fits right in with free market capitalism. Definitely a gray area if you want to like separate morality from just doing the right thing. But it's definitely just like a shitty thing to do. It's a smart business. It's just such a blurred line. It's really hard to like nail it down. Is it the right thing? It seems like a shitty thing to do as I explain it, because it's something I really wouldn't think to do. But if you're just so business minded, then you're just running a good business, aren't you? Is it a financial crime? It's not fraudulent. You're explaining. They know the price they're getting into.
We'll get into the financial crime aspect of it later, because I have some interesting ideas.
Okay.
But when it comes to, you know, the whole idea of like, is this smart capitalism? It becomes interesting, right? Because it goes into those arguments of like, well, this means that the only people that can afford PS5s are the people that are wealthy enough to afford PS5s. Right. And the people that were able to buy up the entire supply of PS5s were the people who could afford to take out, you know, $100,000 loans, or however that guy managed to make that much money to buy all those PS5s up. And part of me says yes, like smart capitalism, it's essentially what our free market is founded upon. But then a large part of me also says, you know, what makes it kind of shitty is that you're not giving people a fair chance to also purchase, because you're using these means, these bots to essentially overwrite people like me who waited in line, you know, for an hour, even though it was online, to try to purchase my PS5. But no, you use computer programs to try to cheat and steal.
Right. And something interesting, an interesting aspect of it though, is it's not a necessity. Obviously, it's not toilet paper and hand sanitizer during the pandemic. And you had mentioned shoes earlier, and to be specific, we're talking about like high-end shoes. We're talking people scalp Jordans, and you know, people aren't scalping Skechers and stuff. So when we say we're taking something that was affordable and making it non-affordable, the question I guess I want to pose is, was it affordable in the first place? These are extremely expensive, and I have my answer, and I'll share it, but I want to ask you, because this isn't something everyone needs. It's a luxury item. It's an entertainment source. It's a high-end entertainment source, right?
I mean, you said yourself, PlayStation sells these at a loss. So whether or not is it affordable is one question, but is it worth it is another, right? I mean, if PlayStation is selling them for less than what it takes to actually make, then how much lower can they really make it?
Right. No. I'm not saying it should be. I mean, I don't know this, but I assume like I have the newest Android or whatever, last year's newest Android. I'm sure it was sold at a loss, which I thought it was still way too much for a phone. But the selling them at a loss doesn't make it any less expensive, right? It's still, what is it, $600, $560 something, which is,
For
or am I wrong? Did you say four?
for a PlayStation?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, how much is it? $600?
No,
In the
they're
ballpark?
like $500, I think, $500-600, yeah.
$500. Okay. So, but I mean, that's not like something you just, it came out and you want it, you get it. Like, I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, people who are wealthy can do that, and those are the people who may be able to afford these scalped prices. But for people who, I mean, like me, I didn't get a new PlayStation 5. I don't want to spend $600. Like, that is a high price, and this is like the retail price is something that will already discourage a lot of buyers. So is it, like, my question, I guess, that I'm posing is it really unfair? Is it unjust? Because it's already expensive. They're making it more expensive.
I mean, I would say, yeah, because you're making this thing that's already borderline. I mean, so PlayStation's already made them the cheapest they can by selling them at a loss, right?
Right.
And okay, so maybe I'm a poor mom whose, kids desperately want a PlayStation for Christmas. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it on my credit card, $600. It's a lot of money, but I can pay it off. But now they've all been, scooped up by these bots. And the only opportunity I have to buy it now is from a scalper who's selling it at $1,200.
Right.
Can I afford that? No. Can I even put it on my credit card? No.
Right.
So not only do I not have the opportunity to like pay for it in credit, I have to, it's increased in price, and I have to pay in cash because I have to pay off a scalper.
Right.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree 100%. I think as expensive as it is within the means of, if you can save a couple paychecks, and if you want to, you can afford a $600. If it's something that's important to you, it is within the means of a lot more people at $600. Whereas at $1,200, if that's something you would put on your credit card, then I do believe, I mean, I was posing the question, but I agree with you. I do believe that the scalping is taking something that's expensive, but borderline possible for a lot of people, a lot of middle to lower income people, and then putting it well outside of their range.
Right.
I don't know.
So I wanted a PlayStation 5, right? And even though, so I wanted a PlayStation 5, and I personally did not have $600 to drop in cash, right, in my checkings account to just put on a PlayStation, but I would have felt comfortable using my credit card. But as soon as, scalpers got it, even when scalpers were only selling them at a small markup of like $700-800, I didn't have $800. I definitely did not have $800 cash to spend, right? I had been planning on putting that on my credit card the entire time. So it just makes it completely out of reach for even people who are not struggling. I wouldn't consider myself struggling. I feel like I'm in a very privileged position. I feel, comfortable in where I'm at. And even that put me out of reach for a PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I agree. And I think on a societal level, like when we talk about ethics and is it a crime? I mean, we can identify, I guess, maybe it's not a crime. We've specifically said it's not illegal. So I guess we should end the podcast and just hang up right now. But I mean,
UK, there's actually, I read an article, UK politicians were calling for for new scalping laws because of the whole PS5, Xbox Series X debacles.
I can't disagree with that because, what am I trying to say? I think as a society, like we understand it's wrong, like whether it's illegal and we talk about like pure ethics, right and wrong, maybe it's a blurred line, but like as a society, just imagine you're trying to go into a concert. I keep going back to the man scalping in front of the stadium, and he's giving you these tickets at such a marked up price. You're like, like you're mad. Like people don't agree with scalping, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, or whether it's legal or illegal. People agree it's wrong, so maybe it should be illegal, right? And just as you said with the PS5, that Europe is, and they tend to be sometimes in sort of these things that the US lags in some of these cyber related shady borderline instances, especially with like data privacy or whatever. But the EU isn't generally, in terms of like cyber related fraud and crime, more active than the United States, more proactive. And so if they're doing this, then just as we've talked about, I mean, it sounds like it's a wrong thing to do. So should it be illegal? I would say probably, yeah.
So I have an interesting spin, right? So while scalping itself is not illegal, let's go back to our Mister who made $40,000 in 1 week, right? If you think about it, if he's selling them at 2x markup, and he spent $100,000, assumingly he's going to make $100,000 profit, right? When he sells all of them. So do you think he's paying taxes or even reporting?
Yeah.
Do scalpers report all of their extra income on taxes?
I don't know. My first instinct is to say no, because this is sort of a borderline sketchy business, but I don't want to lay a judgment on anybody. Maybe it's it's just a really motivated.
I feel completely comfortable making that judgment and saying that I can almost guarantee that most of these scalpers are not paying their taxes, which I don't want to be like the tax guy, but the
probably
IRS,
right.
If they wanted to, that is technically illegal. And I mean, I think a lot of people, if they're not in like financial crimes, don't really think about the IRS or the tax implications of like half the things they do. But cash earnings from side gigs, and that includes scalping, are supposed to be reported on your tax returns, even if the actual earnings are minimal. And underreporting income from side work can lead to penalties, either civil and criminal penalties.
It might be an Al Capone situation where these people are scalping and we don't have legislation to prevent them from scalping, but we can identify that they're not paying taxes on their scalped goods. And like I said, Al Capone.
Right.
And then, I mean, that's a good point where like, if anyone is going to come after you, it's the IRS. Like, even when we're talking about like financial crimes, like, is FinCEN going to knock at your door? No.
FinCEN doesn't do anything, right?
But IRS will send an agent to knock on your, the maybe IRS, not literally, but they'll come after you. If you owe them money, if you owe them $200, they're getting their $200. The IRS.
Most people don't know this, but the IRS is actually, they're the sword, essentially, of FinCEN.
Yeah. And like me, just to speak personally, like the IRS, like they're the sword, and they have a lot of cool jobs, and like it's definitely on my radar to be an IRS investigator. But like, the name IRS, like, who do you work for? The IRS? That like.
Well, it's because you have to think it's IRS, and then it's IRS CI, IRS Criminal Investigations Unit. So it's so funny because when I was doing
knocking on their door.
When I was doing research for this podcast, I was thinking, I was like, scalpers have to make money. And I started going down this rabbit hole of like, grandmas and grandpas who probably aren't reporting income to the IRS in their like garage, their garage sales.
Yeah.
Which technically is also, you have to, well, okay. So it depends, right? So
what's the threshold?
So when determining if a sale has to be reported as income, it's not necessarily about the dollar amount that you receive. It's about whether or not the item was sold for more than it was originally purchased, which for these scalpers, obviously, yes. If you're having a garage sale and you're selling like, you're selling your shit for like 10 cents, a few dollars, probably less than what it was actually worth when you bought it. That's
generally at a garage sale, you're not marketing stuff
you're not
used.
You're not like profiting from the stuff, right? So those aren't capital gains. Whereas if you're selling PS5s for a profit, that's all capital gain, and that has to be reported on your taxes. If not, IRS will come for you. I can't say that they will because they're severely understaffed. So they probably won't come for you, but if they wanted to, they totally could, which justifies my title of this podcast. PS5 scalpers face jail time?
Face jail time? But to put anyone at ease, if you were having garage sales, you're probably not getting capital gain. You're probably not getting targeted by the IRS. Just to quell fears.
No,
you're probably just trying to recover what you can from a used item. If you're reselling things at your garage sale that are brand new, but just to quell fears. But so what's the answer? Because we talked about Walmart has they have like Counterbots that are crawling their sales to identify bot sales, and they're getting audited and canceled. So if they identify that a bot has bought it, they will cancel that sale and open up that product for let's call it a legitimate user or a legitimate purchaser, what are and that, like you said, the retailer, they have to put things in place kind of more as like a security theater. So it seems like they're doing something, but they're getting their bottom line met. They probably don't care too much. What are the is it legislation like you mentioned in the European Union? What's the answer?
I personally don't think that the onus should rest on the government to correct this issue. I think the issue should be corrected by the manufacturers. I think PS5 really botched their launch, and they should have done better pre-sales, right?
Sure.
If the pre-sales were done in a much better manner, I think things would have gone much better. And I think a large part of why there was this huge issue this time around was because everything was done online, and it was their first time executing such a large launch completely
just COVID
online.
messing things up again, man.
But I definitely don't think that the onus needs to be on the government to create new legislation on scalping.
Doesn't that bring us back to free market? Because these manufacturers, the suppliers, and the retailers are getting their bottom lines met. When scalpers hoard these, they're limiting the supply, which can have an effect on the legitimate retailers. But as far as Sony goes, if they're being scalped and the supply is minimalized, they can produce more supply to meet the demand, assuming they don't let the scalpers buy those as well.
Right. The best you can do is, as a consumer, not pay these scalpers, because when you pay, you feed into it, right? Just wait. Eventually there will be more. It's scarce for a time, right? But it's not like those are the only PS5s that are ever going to be made, right? There's going to be more eventually. And it sucks, but it's kind of one way to counteract that, right? And two, if you were, I mean, like the Walmarts and the Targets can't really do anything about it, but like the Craigslists and the Amazons, if they wanted to, could do something if they wanted to take a stance against scalping. Especially maybe more so like Craigslist and OfferUps, because they don't really, I don't think, have any monetary, I don't think they make anything off of sales. I don't think they make actual commissions. I'm not sure.
Don't know.
Don't quote me on that. Amazon, I know Amazon does, so they might be a little less incentivized to cut them down, but those are kind of your options. Yeah. And then
back.
If you know somebody who's making hundreds of thousands on scalping, or even tens of thousands, I'm not saying report them to the IRS.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I'm not saying report them to the IRS, but you maybe scare them.
Write them a letter. But what you said assumes rationality of the consumer, like to a degree of supply is low now, it will increase and meet my demand and I'll get a fair price. But when this thing launches, like that's part of their marketing is like, I want it now. And like, that's not rational to pay more for something now than you can get in a week or a month or whatever for the fair price. But people are going to do that. People are going to pay scalpers because they want it today. People are going to pay, going back to like our masters, people will pay kidnappers, even though they know it prolongs kidnapping, but they want their family member back.
I mean, I think it's
an emotional idea.
That's
No, I'm just saying, no, it's an emotional, no, I'm saying it's an emotional, obviously one is much more severe than the other, but I'm saying it's not a rational decision, it's an emotional decision.
Right.
And so are people going to stop making those emotional decisions to get back at scalpers? Or if someone who has $1,200 just going to be like, I'll just eat a $600 loss so I can have my PlayStation now when it's new.
You think the onus should fall on the government then?
I think it has to. I'm okay with saying that. I don't think retailers will rein themselves in at this point because they're not facing they don't have any risk. So if there's a legislative. But
I mean, what are the retailers going to do? Like, what would the legislation do for retailers, right? Will they limit the amount that they can sell, or because the issue is bots, right? So it's not necessarily the retailers the issue is bots. So, I mean,
hey man, we're talking in the hypotheticals here.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation, and I would love to know what all of our listeners think about that. So if you have any comments, please comment below. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to the pod online, head to our YouTube channel and comment down below.
That sounds like a happy hour for another time, going into the legislative side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great conversation. I definitely think we should continue it with some, maybe we can get some really good people who are either lawyers or legislators online and ask them some really good questions. I think that'd be awesome.
I'm definitely sure we can get somebody on here who will have some great ideas about this. That's good. So once again, we talked for a half hour and we come up without a good answer. We just end the podcast with a question.
I think it's a lot of times it's just really good to get a conversation started, right?
For sure. And that's really what I mean, I was joking. That's what we're trying to do, is just get people aware and talking about it.
Right. And I mean, they could, we did have kind of an answer, right? I mean, they could face jail penalties if the IRS wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, and they're not paying their taxes.
Pay their tax. If they pay their taxes, then they're free to do this at the launch of the PS6 or when the next GTA comes out or
95% confident that none of these people are claiming any of these.
I agree.
PS5.
I agree. I just don't want to be on camera making these judgments.
If anybody,
I'm sure these people are not.
If anybody wants to fight me on that or argue the counter in the comments below,
right on.
Let me know and I will totally comment on your comment.
If you're a scalper, comment, leave your first name, last name, email address, social security number.
No, if you're a scalper, please let us know and we will have you on our next episode.
That would be
great.
Yeah, we'll anonymize you. But if you're involved in this, that'd be what a weird call out. Like, hey, if you're doing the thing we said you shouldn't be doing, why don't you join us on the camera?
After we just said that we were going to contact the IRS.
Oh, I would never. I would not.
No, I wouldn't either.
Journalistic integrity here.
Right.
You did mention though, you got a PS5. What games are you playing? What's your handle, man? Why don't you and I game a little? Why don't we get some of these listeners out here?
Yeah, I'm not gonna mention my handle online.
No, I'm
at
just
least not
kidding,
now.
yeah.
Well,
what games do you play though?
What games do I have? I got for everybody who is listening. I got this PS5 as a gift, so I did not pay the scalpers. But I have. I actually haven't had a whole lot of time to play my PS5. I bought the Miles Morales, the new one that came out with the launch. And that came with the OG Spider-Man, the remastered one for the PS4. So I played both of those and beat them pretty soon. And they were actually pretty dope. Definitely recommend.
Nice. Cool. That actually brings up a good point that I didn't mention is PS5s are compatible with PS4 games. So talking about that tie ratio where they want to sell so many games to so many consoles, people will buy the scalped consoles and be able to play their old games on like these new faster machines. So
yeah,
I mean, fun fact. We're kind of winding down, but just a fun fact you reminded me of.
Yeah,
not helping the situation.
If we had more followers and more ad money, I would say, once we get to 1 million subscribers, we're gonna give out a free PS5.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not there yet. I wish
maybe
we were
by that
cool.
time. Maybe by that time, PS6 will be out and you can get a PS5 for $100. No, it'll be. Yeah. I'm just joking.
We'll see. Maybe we'll see where the history of this pod goes. But other than that, yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So please leave us a comment. Make sure you follow us on all our social media. You could YouTube us at, I think, Cash Only Pod will probably pop up, hopefully. What's our website?
Cashonlypod.com. On Twitter, cash_podcast. I don't know the Facebook URL, but you can just Google Cash Only Financial Crime Podcast. Or not Google, search it in Facebook.
Look for our faces.
All right, man. What a good talk, man. It's good to see you again and had some good questions for us to ponder over.
Yeah.
Right on, man. All right. Well.
Oh, wait, what was I'm supposed to have an outro, right? I always forget it because it was Adam's.
Oh, it's been so damn long. It's see ya.
See ya. I thought it was peace.
Or peace. It's one of the two. It's see ya or peace, but he says in that. Whatever.
I need to come up with my own.
We shouldn't we?
Peace.
Got to create a personal brand. All right, man. Good talking with you.
Ciao.
See ya, man.